In today's video, we're going to discuss how to choose and purchase your first set of Highland bagpipes. Stay tuned. Well, hello everybody, I'm Matt Willis Bagpiper, and on this channel I make videos to make you a stronger and more confident piper. If you like this kind of content, please think about giving the video a like, subscribing to the channel, and commenting below with any thoughts you might have. I also teach Skype and online lessons if you want more personalized instruction, but more on that later. So you're finally at the point where you're ready to purchase your first set of Highland bagpipes, and my goodness, is there a lot of things you have to kind of know about to purchase one of these things right here. Do you want new? Do you want used? Do you want wood? Do you want polypenco? Do you want a wooden chanter? Do you want a hide bag? What kind of reeds? Well, today we're going to discuss all of these. I've done my best to make an easy to follow guide to assist you in purchasing your pipes. Many of the points I make in this video are my opinion and prerogative after 20 years of teaching this instrument. If you do have an instructor and their advice differs from mine, please refer first to your instructor's knowledge. He or she may well know more about your specific needs, be it your environment, your stature, your blowing strength, all of these things. In the description below, there's a PDF checklist with all of the things we're discussing today so that you don't miss anything on your bagpipe purchasing journey. So go ahead, download that, print it out, have it ready when you go to buy your pipes. The first question, new pipes, used pipes. This is probably going to be the largest purchase you're going to make sight unseen. It's pretty hard to actually get your hands on a set of pipes, to test drive it, to play it before you have a chance to purchase it. And well, if this is your first time playing a set of Highland pipes, having the ability to play it wouldn't do you much good because you don't know how to play it yet. So let's consider the pros and cons of new pipes versus used pipes. I've done my best not to favor any particular brand in this video, save perhaps a few unique items at the end in the supplies section. The point of this video is not to be a commercial, but to make you better informed about purchasing your future bagpipe. With a set of new pipes, it's going to almost certainly come with some sort of warranty, be it 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, and if it doesn't, well, I personally would find a different set of pipes that does have a warranty. The other thing with the new set is that I have the peace of mind that the bag is going to be new, the reeds are going to be new, that everything is going to be, well, fresh and new, and that gives me a certain peace of mind about the set as, you know, it comes into my life and I start playing it. Another pro of a new set is that you can find the specific mountings, the projecting mounts, the ferrules, the ring caps, all of the various items of the pipe. You can more or less kind of customize your set within the parameters of any maker to get the set that you're looking for. With a used set of pipes, you're going to be limited to the pipes you find on the market. The biggest con of a new set of pipes versus a used set of pipes is going to be the cost. For the same bagpipe with the same mounting, it's almost certainly going to be more expensive to purchase a brand new bagpipe than it is a used bagpipe. Think of a used car versus a new car. There's depreciation immediately upon the purchase of, well, either of these items. So something to keep in mind, if money is tight, you may well want to consider going with a used bagpipe instead. So let's talk about used bagpipes. The biggest pro we just mentioned, and that is price. You're almost always going to be able to save some money on the instrument if you go with a used bagpipe. One of the cons, however, is it's very difficult to make sure that there are no cracks or other damage to the pipe in advance, especially if you can't see it. And as a beginning player, you're not necessarily even going to know what you're looking for. And then there's almost certainly not going to be any warranty behind the instrument should you find damage down the road. The other thing with the used set of pipes, for me personally, on a hygienic level, I always put a new bag on. Unless a brand new pipe bag was tied in for the resale, I would strongly recommend any used and old pipe bags be discarded and replaced with a new pipe bag. You just don't know what all has gone into that pipe bag before, well, you're breathing in. And no valve is 100% efficient. So whatever's in that bag, some of it's going to make it back into, well, your lungs. So something to be mindful of. There are sites like bagpipecentral.com that have plenty of listings. Now, these are just put up by the owners themselves, but they tend to be quality pipes from what I've seen. But if you do find a set of used pipes on there, I'd get in touch with the reseller and see if you can't get photos of the top part of each stock right around here, up close. This is an area that it will often crack, especially around the blowpipe and chanter from excessive moisture. So I would look for any cracking in the photos there. I'd also ask if possible to get photos of the reed seats and the tops of the pipes and look for cracks here. An overly forcefully inserted reed can cause a crack in the reed seat and you don't want that. And of course, you don't want cracks down any other section either, but I don't know if it's reasonable to ask for 100 photos from the person selling the instrument, but these are a few problem areas that I often see cracks on used pipes, so something to be mindful of if you are trying to save some money and go the used bagpipe route. If at all possible, it'd be best if a more experienced bagpiper could inspect the set of pipes before it's purchased, but that's generally not going to be available to you. Most all of these purchases are going to be online, so it's just not terribly feasible, but if it is an option, you can get your hands on the pipes and get a more experienced piper to inspect them first. That might be able to give you some peace of mind about the purchase you're going to make. On Jim McGilvery's website, he has a list of, I would say, certified refurbished high-end used bagpipes. These are classic instruments that have been refurbished to the highest level and are excellent, but you're not going to save any money there because these instruments are quality, real, classic bagpipes. Now, if you can afford them, by all means, check them out. And if you know of any other bagpipe refurbishing folks or certified used bagpipe websites, please feel free to list them in the comments below. Also, be aware that whether you go with a new bagpipe or a used bagpipe, there are a number of other expenses beyond just the pipes themselves. You'll need a case, you'll need a number of supplies. So when you see that price, understand you're going to have to spend a little bit more than that to get everything you're going to need to be ready to start learning on the pipes. Plastic or wooden pipes. This is a trickier topic to cover. Plastic bagpipes are definitely more durable than any wooden bagpipe, but unless you're going to be camping a lot, playing exclusively in the rain, or you're buying these for a small child, or maybe you're just really clumsy, well, if those aren't the case, then I would strongly recommend considering a wooden bagpipe. So my experience is with plastic bagpipes. So that's Polypenco, Delarin, Acetal. There's a number of brand names of the plastic. I'm going to use the term poly bagpipe instead of plastic or one of the other names. That's typically what I see them referred to online in various discussions. So the normal complaint I hear about poly pipes is that the tone is shrill or harsh. I don't necessarily find that true. You have to properly set up any bagpipe, poly or wood, for it to sound as rich and full as it can. For me, it's had more to do with the tuning. And being a pipe major in Texas, what I noticed was I was spending a lot more time tuning the folks in my band that had poly pipes versus the folks that had Blackwood bagpipes. At first, I thought this might be the skill level of the players, as the folks with the poly pipes were brand new pipers coming into the band, but as they got more experienced, I still had the same issues with their pipes staying in tune against the rest of the band. My best guess is that the Polypenco or plastic expands or contracts more quickly in heat or cold than the Blackwood. And if I'm wrong on this, and I'm not a plastic scientist, please comment below with your knowledge on the topic. With a set of poly pipes that I personally own, I have to tune the drones more often during the warm-up phase, and if I put them down for even a few minutes, 2-3 minutes, when I pick them back up and go to play, it's like they have reset themselves in a way that Blackwood does not do. Now, don't get me wrong, the Blackwood pipes still, if you take a break, are going to settle to some degree, but I don't find that they move nearly as drastically as the poly pipes do. Now, if you've had different experiences with Polypenco pipes, please comment below with your thoughts. I might be missing something on this topic, and I'd love to learn more. Now, all that said, again, if you're clumsy, needing a rough and tumble instrument, or just the price of a new set of Blackwood pipes is beyond your reach, and you don't want to purchase a used set of Blackwood pipes, the Polypenco pipes can be a solid option. Another thing to note that in my 20 years of teaching, nearly every one of my students that has purchased a Polypenco bagpipe has down the road transitioned to a Blackwood bagpipe. So if you feel that down the road you're going to want a set of Blackwood pipes, I'd recommend saving the extra money now. They're not that much more expensive than a set of Polypenco pipes. And if that's what you really want down the road, then I recommend, well, you get them just out the gate. And why am I specifying Blackwood specifically when I talk about wooden pipes? First, it's by far the most common wooden material used to make Highland bagpipes. Secondly, it's more durable than the other materials that are out there. One of the other major woods being used is cocobolo, which can sound absolutely phenomenal as a wood for drones, but it is more maintenance heavy. You're going to have to oil a set of cocobolo pipes far more often than a set of Blackwood pipes, especially if you're in an arid environment. Now, that might be something you truly enjoy doing, but something to be mindful of if you're considering various woods for a bagpipe. A wood that's becoming common with several makers is Cadillacs or Royal Mexican Ebony. Now, I have no personal experience on this. I know there's a number of makers that are really excited about using it, but I've heard from a number of other makers they have no plans to incorporate it into their own production lines for various reasons. So I cannot confirm or deny anything about Cadillacs or Royal Mexican Ebony at this time. Should that change and I get experience with Royal Mexican Ebony, there'll be a card right up there with my thoughts and feelings on Royal Mexican Ebony as a wood for bagpipes. For the rest of this video, I'm going under the assumption you're buying a new bagpipe, so we can go point by point down all of the various things we need to consider. But even if you're considering a used bagpipe, I recommend watching the rest of this video so that you can fill in any gaps that the instrument you're looking at might have. So do you go with a large bagpipe manufacturer, a relatively small firm, or a solo bespoke pipe maker? Great question. I feel we're truly in a golden age of bagpipe production right now. So many excellent sets are being made by large firms, by small firms, and by solo craftsmen. If you're looking for a truly one-of-a-kind bagpipe, a small firm or a bespoke maker might be your best option. You'll be able to customize every aspect of the instrument in a way that a larger manufacturing firm is simply not going to be able to do. The drawbacks to that customization, well, there's a few. One is price. It's almost certainly going to cost more because you don't have economies of scale working for you in the production of the instrument. Another thing to look out for is the wait or lead time for the instrument. Many of these smaller firms and solo pipe makers can have wait times of 6 months, 9 months, a year, or even longer. So keep that in mind. If you're watching this video and you're just starting your bagpipe journey, you just got your practice channel, you're starting your scale, and you already have your eye on the bagpipe you want from a bespoke maker or a small firm, it might be a great time to, well, place that order. It's a huge commitment. It means that you really are going to stick with this. But it could well play out that when your order is ready, you'll be at the place in your learning where you're ready to transition. If you wait to the point where you're ready to transition to the Highland pipes and then you put your order in, that starts the clock right then, and you might be a year or more away from getting the instrument that you need to start learning. Something else to keep in mind is that not every small firm or solo pipe maker makes their own pipe chanter. So that's something to investigate, something to look into. There are a number of great chanters on the market, so it's not a big deal. But if you wanted the entire instrument matching, I would look and make sure that the maker you're looking at produces a chanter. And if not, see which chanter that maker recommends you purchase. Be it a small firm or solo pipe maker, I would still ask about the warranty. There are so many companies out there offering warranties on the pipes for various types of damage that can occur. So contact the firm or pipe maker you're thinking about and see what the warranty is. And if there isn't a warranty, you might want to, well, look around and see if you can find a similar instrument available from a company that will offer one. But that's not to discount the larger firms making pipes like R.G. Hardy & Co., McCallum Bagpipes, Dunbar Bagpipes out of Canada, and there are so many more. Nail, Shepherd, Wallace, the list goes on and on. My own 3 primary sets of pipes come from 3 major manufacturers. All 3 fantastic instruments, all 3 made by different companies, all 3 backed by warranties. With a major manufacturer, there may be fewer options, however, to get the instrument customized quite the way you want it. And if you're curious about these options I keep talking about, we'll be going over that in the next section of the video. And with a major manufacturer, one of the other pros is that they are generally readily available, or if not, it's a few weeks of a lead time to get the instrument rather than months or even years. So if the bagpipe is in stock at a major retailer, you may well have that bagpipe in your hands, ready to play and already set up within a week. That's pretty incredible. In the end, I feel it's hard to go wrong with any major name in the field right now, be it a major firm, a small firm, or a solo pipe maker. They're all producing fantastic instruments. You need to find the one that fits your needs best. My job here is not to recommend one specific brand to you. It's just to give you kind of an overview of the pros and cons of what you can expect from a small firm or a solo pipe maker or a large firm, and do they match up with your needs? And if you have an instructor, by all means, speak with them about the type of bagpipe they recommend. Use their experience to help guide you in your decision if you have access to that kind of, well, knowledge. I've had many students over the years buy a bagpipe that they didn't ask me about and just show up with that at a lesson. And sometimes they're fantastic, and sometimes they're the one type of bagpipe I don't recommend, and that is anything you're buying on, say, Amazon or eBay for less than like $200. There's a video right up there about me attempting to rebuild one of these sets and make it work, and you can see it just doesn't work at all. You're going to spend roughly $1,000 or more on any quality bagpipe that's playable. So something to keep in mind. This is not a place you can kind of cheap out and get something in the interim. These instruments that are that inexpensive, these instruments are simply not able to be made playable. Each brand and make of bagpipe has its own signature sound, and again, it's beyond the scope of this video to cover that all here now. As you're looking around on various bagpipe retailers or the internet in general, as you find these brands, look them up, find videos of people playing them, see if you can identify certain sound characteristics in any particular brand of pipes. For For many beginning pipers, even ones with a musical background, it can take many years to develop the ear to really tell the nuances between any given set of pipes. This is an important topic, but it's one you're going to have to learn on your own over time. And not to turn this into a commercial for me, but if you have a specific question about a make or brand of bagpipe, I would be happy to schedule some paid lesson time with you to discuss these options. You can always find me at www.mattpiper.com or email me at the address you see here, and we can discuss pipes. So while the general configuration of a Highland bagpipe has remained the same for quite some time, pipe bag, chanter, blowpipe, bass drone, and 2 tenors, the style of the pipes themselves can vary a lot. That said, everything we're about to discuss is just cosmetic. These are things that make the bagpipe look different. They do not alter the sound. In fact, I have a video right up here comparing a fancy set of Peter Henderson pipes made by R.G. Hardy with their basic smooth-turned entry-level Blackwood model, the RG00, and you'll hear, spoiler alert, that they sound basically identical. So let's talk about what these options are. The exterior finish of the wood itself. Now, many bagpipes have what is called combed and beaded exteriors, and that is alternating rows of combing, close ridges with beads, rounded bits. But there's also flat combed, where you can see there's just areas of combing, and between them, there is just smooth Blackwood. And then there's also smooth turned Blackwood, where the exterior finish is just a smooth, shiny Blackwood, often shows more wood grain. The exterior finish on some modern R.G. Hardy pipes, and I believe the Marr Bagpipe Company is also doing it now, may have either Celtic knotwork, zoomorphic designs. That's a new bit of technology coming out. You might have an option that's not combed beaded, flat combed, or smooth turned. There may well be Celtic knotwork or other options available for the wood if you really want to bring it up a notch. All of my bagpipes have what are called projecting mounts. These are these mushroom-shaped bits, if you will, that kind of stick out. They act as bumpers, more or less, when you set the pipes down. Now, they're often made of a somewhat valuable material, so I don't try to get them all scratched up. But it does offer a bit of protection to the instrument when you lay it down versus, say, a button mount. You can see here in the photo of the button mount that it's much closer to the instrument. More of the instrument is often making contact with whatever surface you're laying on. And sometimes the button mount is an integral part. It's actually the same wood as the rest of the instrument rather than a contrasting wood or a separate piece. And the material of a mount, be it projecting or button mount, can be any number of things. Now, a very common one is imitation ivory, as you can see right here. It's a classic clean look with a lot of contrast. You can see here on this set of Peter Henderson Heritage pipes, I have actually satin wood, and their modern sets have a boxwood that's a little bit lighter. Still a contrasting wood, but it doesn't pop quite as much as this. I rather like the somewhat subdued and tan look to this. But again, neither of these affects the sound of the instrument. It's just an aesthetic choice on the exterior of the instrument on how it looks. Button mounts can be made of any number of materials as well. These also can be made from metal. You can have metal projecting mounts, so they often add to the weight of the instrument, so something to keep in mind. There's also artificial horn and a number of other woods that can be used. So again, it's kind of an aesthetic choice for what your bagpipe looks like. Another part of the instrument that can vary wildly are the drone tops. You can see here on this set of Peter Henderson Heritage pipes, I have a metal cap with an exposed, in this case, satin wood bush. And on this set of McRae's, you can see it's a bullseye pattern with an exterior ring cap and then a imitation ivory bush. I do want to point out that that ring is not an inlay. That is actually the same Blackwood as over here. The exterior has been turned down to put on a ring cap on the outside, and then the inside's been turned out to put this bush, this top section here, where the bell is then constricted through the end. So just something to note, that's not a separate piece of Blackwood. It's part of the overall drone itself. There are also completely solid tops where you don't see any bit of contrasting anything. It could be a solid bit of imitation ivory, or it can be a solid metal cap. Again, this is an aesthetic choice, and it's often specific to the model you're looking at. It's not necessarily a pick and choose between them. So just another bit of decoration to keep in mind. Then there's the ferrules. These are the sections at the bottom of each of the drone pieces and the top of each one of the stocks, as you can see here. This serves a mechanical function of keeping the receiving end of any of these from splitting when the other sections are being inserted and moved about for tuning. These can be made out of metal, as they are on here, or they can be made out of imitation ivory or various woods, as you can see in the photo there. Again, does not affect the tone of the instrument. It's an aesthetic choice. You go with the one that you feel suits your envisioned bagpipe best. The tuning pins. Do you want a metal sleeve over the pin, or do you want it to be just the integral Blackwood? The sleeve offers a little bit more decoration. It also offers a bit more protection. In my experience, I have not seen terribly many pins get broken that have the metal, which I find somewhat surprising given they have to turn it down to put the sleeve on there. But that metal sleeve does seem to offer a bit of protection. As you can see on my McRae's here, there is no sleeve and they're doing just fine. I rather like the contrast of Blackwood to imitation ivory back to a Blackwood pin right here before going to a shiny ferrule. But I do want you getting the bagpipe that visually suits your style and personality. And then engraved or not engraved, that is the question. It's really, again, up to you. Engraved metal can look really, really great, but it does add to the cost of the instrument, again, without altering the tone at all. The chanter, do you want one with the more modern bottom end of the chanter, or do you want one with a sole? The sole is just a medium to large disc at the bottom of the chanter, and it gives a little bit of weight to the chanter. It kind of makes it fall a little bit more straight down as you're playing, but it, again, does not seem to affect the sound in any meaningful way. I currently don't have any chanters with soles on them, but if you really like the look of a sole, there's nothing wrong with that. Go ahead and get the sole. Again, just know it's a cosmetic aspect of the instrument. Also to note, if your chanter does have a sole and you should want to resell that chanter later, it's going to have a smaller market. Not only because not everyone wants a sole, but the sole might be made out of a material that doesn't match anything on another bagpipe. A soleless chanter, boy, that doesn't sound good, but a soleless chanter is going to be available to anybody because there's nothing distinctive on the chanter to make it mismatch another part of a bagpipe. Now that you've been armed with all of the basic configurations, all the various bits that can be customized on your bagpipe, I'd go to the website of the pipe maker you're thinking about or the manufacturer you're thinking about, the brand you're thinking about, and look at their various model lines and see if you can find one that matches up with your tastes and needs in an instrument. There is no right and wrong here. It's your instrument, it's your money. Get something that you are going to really enjoy. Plastic or wooden pipe chanter. This is where I will alter my stance from earlier. I actually believe that every piper's first chanter should be a polypenco or plastic chanter. First, I have not noticed the tuning issues with poly chanters versus wooden chanters that I've noticed with poly drones versus wood drones. I suspect that it might be because the thinness of the walls on both of them is so thin that they're moving similarly just given how thin the material is. But Blackwood chanters are substantially more fragile than a poly chanter, and as you're learning how to play this instrument, the last thing you need to do is snap your Blackwood chanter in half on the first few days as you're learning how to deal with your instrument. And every few years, there seems to be a real upgrade in pipe chanters across the board. Every major manufacturer is offering new chanters every few years. So you start with the polypenco chanter or Delrin chanter that they offer. There might be a Blackwood chanter on the market that you really want in 3 or 4 years when you have more experience about tuning and tone and everything else. So I recommend going with a poly chanter, if at all possible, out the gate and upgrading later to a Blackwood. That said, if you want a Blackwood chanter, by all means, get the Blackwood chanter. There are great chanters being made from solo pipe makers all the way up to the major manufacturers. They're great instruments. They are more fragile. Keep that in mind. Always deal with the chanter from the very top around the bulb, not grabbing it anywhere else. But yeah, nothing wrong with getting the Blackwood, but I do, for my students, recommend starting with a poly chanter. The hardest part of this question, what type of pipe bag do you get? Do you get an animal skin? Do you get a synthetic? There's so many options, and one of the biggest problems is you don't have enough information yet to really answer the question of what you need. And what do I mean by this? There are different kinds of blowers out there. It's the term we use as pipers. Are you a wet blower or are you a dry blower? If you're a wet blower, you're going to need to have a bag or a system within the bag to deal with the moisture coming out of your breath. If you're a dry blower, however, you may well need a bag that retains more moisture, that can get that moisture to the reed so that you don't get a dry and thin sound. And how do you know which one you are? As I said, you can't really know at this point. For this reason, given the number of options on the market and our inability to know how you're going to be playing at this point, I recommend for my students typically going one of two routes, either a hybrid synthetic bag or a cowhide bag. Now, the hybrid synthetic bag is a bag that has a faux leather outside and a Gore-Tex-like inside. They're relatively easy to set up. If you had to attach the pipes yourself, and depending on where you get them, you may have to do that. The faux leather outside helps with the starts and the stops and the overall building of steady blowing as you start. And we can always fit these with a moisture control system. They almost all come with some sort of tube trap, but there are more advanced moisture control systems should you find that you're a wet blower. And why I don't recommend the most affordable pipe bag option, the pure synthetic bag, just the Gore-Tex bag itself, well, I find that for the beginner, they're harder to control. They're harder to strike in, they're harder to cut off, and they're harder to develop steady blowing on. This instrument is tough enough to learn already, and we don't need to make it harder yet still. That said, if you're on a budget and that pipe bag will allow you to get into the set of pipes you want, and you just don't have the extra money to go to a synthetic hybrid bag, by all means, get the bag. They work just fine. They're a little bit more difficult. If you do have the money, I recommend the synthetic hybrid bag as opposed to the pure synthetic bag. But again, if you're on a budget, the pure synthetic will work just fine. The two main brands of synthetic pipe bag, at least in North America, are Bannatyne and Canmore. There's also the Ross bags from Australia. I've played on all three of these brands. They all make fantastic pipe bags. They all work just fine. There are indeed other pipe bag makers on the market making synthetic bags, but I don't have experience with them. I don't mean to not include them in this list, but I can't discuss something I haven't tried. So if you see a synthetic pipe bag that is not a Canmore, Bannatyne, or Ross, by all means, look it up. Go online, find reviews on that bag. You might find it's a wonderful bag that people really love it. I just haven't tried them. Or if you wanted a more traditional experience, you could go with a cowhide bag. There's a number on the market. One of the ones that's most readily available is the Ganaway bag, but there's also the Lee & Sons bag. I know Bagpipe Bags makes a cowhide pipe bag. There's a number of cowhide pipe bags on the market. If you choose to go with a cowhide bag, understand that you'll need to season, prime, or dress the bag. There's different terms for all of this depending on the brand, but we'll go over more on that in the supply section of this video. These won't deal with moisture as well as, say, a goatskin or a sheepskin, but you might not need that level of moisture control, and we all have to start somewhere, and I think having a million options is just too many. So I'd recommend either a hybrid synthetic if you want to go with a synthetic bag, or a cowhide pipe bag if you want to go with a more traditional leather bag. I don't typically recommend a sheepskin or a goatskin bag for a beginner. They're a premium product and they have a premium price, and they generally need more maintenance than a cowhide bag. And if you do choose to go with a cowhide pipe bag, there are different options available for that. Some bags are sealed, they have no way into the bag. Other bags have zippers. That's going to allow you to get into the bag to put in additional moisture control or valves, should that be something you want in the future. There's also grommeted and ungrommeted versions. The grommets are rubber collars that the stocks fit through. They make attaching everything easier, but it gives the bag a slightly less ergonomic shape. But if you're going to be attaching these yourself, then you may well want to go with the grommets. It's an easier process to attach everything. And there's a link to a playlist up above and in the description below about tying into various bags, so you can check that out. It's beyond, again, this video to discuss setting up the pipes right now, but know that there are options. There are grommeted and ungrommeted leather bags, and there's zippered and unzippered bags. So that's kind of three different varieties. You could have just a sealed bag, you could have a zipper bag, you could have a grommeted bag, or you could have a grommeted and zipper bag. So just keep that in mind. I tend to get bags with zippers these days. I think it's very useful to be able to get in the bag, but I prefer the feeling and ergonomics of a traditionally tied-in bag over grommets, but the grommets make for a far easier process of setting up. And to note, the pipe bag is a wear item. It can last anywhere from 3 to 5 years, sometimes longer. I don't know if I've gotten longer than 5 years out of a pipe bag. So this is not a forever decision. If down the line you can't stand your pipe bag, it's not the cheapest thing in the universe to change out, but it is definitely something that we could swap out and replace with a different material should you not like the one that your pipes initially come with. The size of your pipe bag. This is a very important thing to try to get right, and again, somewhat difficult to determine when you've never played the pipes before. On screen now and in the description below, you'll see a chart listing heights and pipe bag sizes. If you're 5'3" to 5'7", you'll want a small, and if you can find an extended model, that would be great because it allows more air in the bag without making it any bigger around. If you're around 5'7" to around 6'1", you'll want a medium bag. 6'1" and up, you'll want a large. And I don't know if I've ever seen anyone tall enough to need an XL bag, but they do make them. If you're a tall guy, 6'4" or higher and have long arms, perhaps an extra large bag is what you need. You want your pipe bag to hold as much air as possible, but you also want your arm to be able to get around it comfortably without too much tension on your forearm from the bag pressing into it. This chart also assumes that you're of a normal build. If you are obese or extremely muscled, like a bodybuilder, then you might want to go down a size because you'll have less space under your arm due to your physical build. And again, no judgment in any of this. I just want to make sure you get into a pipe bag that's going to work for you. I'm 5'6" and have relatively long arms for my height, so I actually play a medium bag. I think I'd be 5'8" if I had normal sized legs, but I don't. So I personally play a medium bag. I've played extended small bags as well. They work fine, but I do find that my arm might be a little bit low. You're kind of looking for your arm to be less than 45, but more than, say, 30 degrees. The range of squeezing should be somewhere in and around here. If the bag is large enough that your arm is above a 45-degree angle, when you go to squeeze, the pressure that you're generating is actually forcing the bag more down than in. So you want your arm no more than 45 degrees so that when you squeeze, it's actually pushing it more into your rib cage and less onto the ground. And if you're between sizes on this chart, I would err toward the smaller of the two. I'd rather have a slightly too small bag than an overly large bag. Too much pressure on your forearm when you're playing can really impede your ability to play the top hand notes and embellishments. Length of blowpipe. This is also something kind of difficult to do when you've never played a bagpipe before. On screen now, you'll see a chart showing blowpipe length depending on your size. If you're 5'3" or smaller, I'd recommend around an 8-inch blowpipe. If you're 5'3" to 5'7", I'd recommend an 8 to 9-inch blowpipe. If you're 5'7" to 5'10", I'd recommend a 9 to 10-inch blowpipe. If you're 5'10" to 6'1", I'd recommend a 10 to 11-inch blowpipe. If you're 6'1" to 6'5", I'd recommend an 11 to 12-inch blowpipe. And if you're above 6'5", I'd recommend a 12-inch blowpipe. I don't know if you'll find a blowpipe much longer than that. If you have excellent posture, I'd go for the longer of the two lengths when looking at this chart because your head is further back over your shoulders. Drone reeds, a very important conversation. I'll say it now, for the beginner, I do not recommend cane drone reeds. I don't know any make of pipes that includes cane drone reeds out of the box, if you will, but yeah, not cane. With the quality of synthetic drone reeds on the market today, there's no reason to start with a cane reed. As for brand or type, that goes well beyond the scope of this video yet again. There are dozens and dozens of brands of drone reeds on the market. As for which drone reed works best in the bagpipe you're considering, that would be a great conversation to have either with the manufacturing company or the pipe maker of that instrument or with the retailer that you're choosing to buy it through. Easy drone reeds by Pipe Dreams are probably the most common drone reed on the market, but there are so many brands out there. So I would, again, ask your pipe maker, ask your bagpipe retailer which drone reed they feel would go best in the bagpipe you're considering. The Chanter reed, similar to what I said on the drone reeds, again, it's beyond the scope of this video to cover every brand of Chanter reed out there when there are so many. So again, I'd ask the pipe maker or the manufacturer or the bagpipe retailer that you're going through which Chanter reed they recommend for the instrument that you're considering. And to note, the Chanter reed is a completely different reed than the one that's in your practice chanter. The practice chanter and the pipe chanter are totally different instruments, so your practice chanter reed will not work in your Highland pipes. And I would definitely get more than one reed when you buy your bagpipe. Anything can happen. You might get clumsy. You might hit the reed into the side of the stock as you're inserting it. When you're assembling your pipes, have more than one reed. I would start with 3 or even 4 reeds, and an easy strength is what you're wanting, or even a beginner easy strength if it's offered. The bagpipe is hard enough when you first start out. You don't need to be going out with a medium reed or harder and just blowing your eyes out while trying to learn this instrument. The cords and cover. Well, this is really up to you unless you're choosing to join a pipe band, and they may well have cords and covers that they supply to you, or they'll tell you where and what colors to get. But assuming you're just getting this for yourself, the cords, they hold the drones together, so they're not optional. Don't not get them, but get whatever color you think would go best on the instrument. Same thing for the cover. Get whatever color you want. It often coordinates with the drone cords, but it certainly doesn't have to. You do you. But I do recommend a cover. It's just another layer of protection over the pipe bag, which, well, if you get a hole in your pipe bag, it won't play. So anything that can help protect it, I recommend. The case. Unlike just about any other instrument I've ever purchased, when you buy your bagpipe, it's going to come in a box unless you specify getting a case with it. What kind of case? The most popular ones on the market these days are semi-rigid backpack style cases or duffel style cases. These work just fine. They don't offer the most protection, but they do a great job of holding the pipes and the supplies. They just aren't something like I'd want to shove at the bottom of a trunk and put other luggage on top of. You'd have to treat your pipes a little bit more gently, but they do work just fine. I personally use a Pelican 1510, and boom, review right there to that particular case. It's not designed as a pipe case, but it works really well. It's very durable. It has wheels and a handle, so I can walk it around an airport and everything else without having to carry it in my hand. But I do have to break the pipes down a little bit more to fit them into the dimensions of that case. So anyways, check out that video if you want to see the case I use myself. At this point, you might want to go with just the least expensive case option they offer, and I totally understand that. You'll understand the needs you have in a case later as you continue playing and learning and traveling. I do recommend getting a case of some sort. As for which one, look around. There's a lot of them out there, and find the one that either suits your needs or suits your budget, or maybe both. Drone valves and additional moisture control. As you build your bagpipe on a lot of these retailer sites, you'll see that they'll have drone valves or additional moisture control options available. What are these? Well, the drone valves are various devices that go at the bottom of the drone stocks that limit the air to the drones in some capacity to make them easier to start and stop. They also tend to make the drone a little quieter. For my students, I like them to start learning with just open drones that are communicating into the bag, that there's nothing at the bottom to limit the airflow going to them. I think it's important for the beginning player to learn how to properly start and stop their instrument and build steady blowing with the traditional non-valve configuration. You can always add them later if you have some difficulty with anything, but I recommend not starting with the drone valves. And besides, you spend enough money on all of the things you're buying today. This will save you a couple dollars. As for additional moisture control, at this point, if you've never played the pipes before, you don't know what your moisture needs might be. And if you're getting a synthetic bag, they tend to come with a tube trap of some sort. So that should be enough for a vast majority of players out there, especially as you're building your stamina. But if you find that you're needing additional moisture control down the line, there'll be future videos where I discuss this, but I think just the bag and whatever it comes with is a perfect starting point for a beginning player. Supplies. You're going to need a few extra things other than the instrument itself and the case that we discussed. What are those things? Well, here we go. Stock stoppers. These are large corks or rubber stoppers that will go into the stocks of your pipe and allow you to test your bag for airtightness. They're critical for a hide bag to allow you to be able to season the bag and make it airtight, and they're just as important for a synthetic bag for you to be able to test it on a regular basis to make sure that your bag isn't leaking. Drone stoppers. These come in packs of 3, so I'd recommend getting 2, because if you happen to lose one, and believe me, they're going to pop out and you're going to lose one, well, then you only have 2 and you won't be able to stop up all your drones should you need to do that. But they're just small rubber stoppers, fit at the top of your drones. Yes, they can be purchased elsewhere, but these are going to be the right size and they don't cost that much money, so get a couple packs of drone stoppers. Hemp. This is the material we use on the joints of our bagpipe. Many pipes these days are coming hemped from the maker or factory with black hemp, so the yellow hemp allows you to kind of see it over the black and know how much you're putting on. It's also easier to find in a dark pipe case. If you're getting 2 spools of hemp, I'd also recommend getting a spool of unwaxed yellow hemp. I find if I had to redo the joint on a bagpipe, spooling together waxed and unwaxed hemp at the same time gives you a nice joint that's not overly waxy and not overly dry. But I do strongly recommend getting hemp at this point. Yes, you could use dental floss and other string, but this is the material pipers tend to use and it's useful to have in your case. Cobbler's wax. This is sticky black wax. I've been told cobblers don't actually use it, but pipers do, and we use it to wax the string that we just talked about before we put it on the joints of a bagpipe. You want to make sure that the string sticks to the bagpipe itself and doesn't spin around. So it's not critical now, but you never know when you might need to redo the joint on a bagpipe should something happen, so I'd recommend getting some black cobbler's wax. Hemp seal. Now, not every retailer is going to carry this stuff, but I find it's very useful. It helps lubricate and waterproof the hemp joints of your bagpipe. If you don't see hemp seal from the retailer you're looking at, it's just the wax ring a toilet sits on. Yeah, that's kind of nasty, but I promise this is fresh. You can go to any home improvement store, Lowe's, Home Depot, what have you, and buy a wax ring for a toilet. You can take that wax ring and just scoop some of it out, put it in a small sealable container, and keep that in your case so that you can put it on the joints of your bagpipe. Brushes. You're going to want at least a small and a large soft brush to help dry out your pipes when you're done playing. For the beginner, I don't see any need for the nylon scrubby brushes unless you're planning on buying an old set of pipes that might have some gummy old seasoning in the bottom you have to clean out. But for our purposes, I think just a large brush for the stocks and a small brush for the Chanter and Blowpipe would be perfect. And some retailers have brush kits with multiple sizes. Some of them have the scrubby brushes, some of them don't. But if it saves you some money, just make sure there's a large and a small soft brush to help dry out your pipes. It's important. Mouthpiece protectors. These are latex or rubbery bits that go over the end of your blowpipe and help keep your teeth from, damaging the mouthpiece. Many bagpipes these days have fancy mouthpieces. You don't want to be ruining those by, grinding your teeth on it as you're learning. So I definitely get some mouthpiece protectors. I also find that it helps me keep a seal with my mouth around the blowpipe when I'm playing. If you have a hide bag, you're going to need some sort of seasoning, priming, or dressing. The most common seasoning on the market is Hardy's Airtight, and that works in just about every bag, but one of the most common bags I discussed earlier was the Ganaway bag, and it uses its own products. Theirs is a two-part system. It has a primer, and it will come with primer. The maker or retailer may well prime it for you. You might have to prime it yourself. I would ask that question when you're purchasing the pipes, but I would also purchase an additional container of primer because the primer in this case is going to be what makes the bag airtight. There's a separate dressing for the Ganaway bag that helps with the moisture, that it brings the moisture to the surface of the bag and helps it get out of the bag, but it doesn't do much to help with the air tightness of the bag. On the Ganaway products, that's what the primer is for. If you're going with any other type of bag, it's likely going to be the Hardy's Airtight that I recommend, but if that pipe bag maker has their own seasoning and recommends that, well, I would use the product that the pipe bag maker recommends for their bag. If you have a synthetic bag, do not get seasoning. You cannot fix any problem in a synthetic bag with seasoning. You just make a disaster out of the thing. Bagpipe tape. We use this to tune the notes on the Chanter, and you could use any sort of tape, but I find the bagpipe tape that most retailers have, it's the right size, it's a good texture, it tends to work quite well. I'd go ahead and get the bagpipe tuning tape from the retailer, and just another thing not to have to worry about or have to rummage through your drawer to try to find. The Chanter cap or reed protector. So we're not going to be storing our pipe chanter in the pipes itself. That will make the reed get moldy and nasty pretty quick. We're going to need to take it out and keep it covered so that it doesn't damage the reed. So these caps just go over the reed and typically have a little screw and allow you to safely store the chanter and reed together so that you don't have to untune your bagpipe, but it allows the reed to dry out. I would look for one that has a hole or more in it so that the moisture can go out. Again, we're trying to keep it from getting overly wet and nasty. I also recommend getting a second Chanter cap or moisture protector for your blowpipe. If you have the traditional flapper valve at the end of your blowpipe, there's a copper staple holding the little rubber bit on there, and if that gets bent while it's in your case, it's not going to seal very well, and it's going to make playing the pipes an awful lot harder. Protecting that valve while you're traveling could be pretty important. Hearing protection. Whether you buy the hearing protection that's available at your retailer or you just go to a home improvement place and buy some earplugs, I strongly recommend just right out the gate, you get used to wearing earplugs when you're playing. The pipes are extremely loud and I don't need anyone damaging their hearing, especially while playing indoors. Bagpipe cleaning spray. Most retailers these days have some sort of bagpipe cleaning solution spray, be it McLean's, Sanitone. There's a couple other ones I've seen on the market, but they're typically in little spray bottles and they can go a long way to keeping your blowpipe from getting overly nasty and other parts of your instrument. There's a lot of slobber and other things produced on the bagpipe, so anything that we can do to help keep the instrument a little bit more clean, I recommend. And on the nearly mandatory list for the beginning player, I strongly recommend the bagpipe gauge. This was developed by Yori Chisholm and you can get it at bagpipegauge.com. This is one of the times I'm specifically mentioning a product because I know it works well. It gives you a number and a visual readout of the amount of pressure and air going through your instrument. If you were working with me as your instructor, I find it critical so that I can know how strong your bagpipe is over a Skype or online connection. It might seem a bit expensive, but I promise you it's worth the money. It is a great product, and when I have a review on it, boom, it'll be right up there in the corner. And while you're over at bagpipelessons.com, I'd go ahead. He often bundles it with his Ultimate Reed Poker. This is a fantastic tool. It helps open up the staple on your reeds. I know I'm talking about some advanced stuff, more than we need to get into here, but this tool can help you save many reeds that otherwise might die prematurely. So I strongly recommend having this in your arsenal right out the gate so that you can save some reeds down the line. And a product I personally recommend and I've reviewed is the Moose valve. It replaces the flapper valve at the end of your blowpipe, so you don't need that second chanter cap if you're going to go with a Moose valve. And it lives inside the stock of the bagpipe, so it tends to not get damaged when you're traveling. It also acts as a moisture control device of sorts. If you want to learn more about the Moose valve, there's a video right up here and a link in the description below of my review of the Moose valve. Very useful product, but not required at this point. If you have wooden pipes, you'll eventually want all of the supplies to oil your bagpipe, but again, beyond the scope of this video, but I've already made a video on oiling your bagpipes. It's right up there if you wanted to learn more about what all you need to care for your wooden pipes. So this is a nearly impossible amount of information. So again, there's a PDF document checklist in the description below for you to line by line go through everything. I've done my best. I hope I haven't forgotten anything, but this should be everything you need to get started learning the Highland pipes. Again, if you have an instructor, I would discuss this with them. This video might help inform you, but lean into their knowledge. They know you, they know your environment, and they know the instrument, so trust your instructor. But if you don't have an instructor, I hope this video has been helpful for you on what all you need to purchase your Highland pipes. Well, thank you so much for watching, everybody. If you got something out of this video, please think about giving it a like, subscribing to the channel, and commenting below with any thoughts you might have. And if you wanted to go the extra mile, I also have a Patreon and a special shout out to Miss Carrie Tresek, my #1 supporter. You get early access to videos and other perks, and there'll soon be unique special content for my Patreon members, so stay tuned for that. I also teach Skype and online lessons. Go ahead and head over to www.commandyourbagpipe.com. I'm working with folks from all over the planet, and I hope to work with you soon. I also have a line of Command Your Bagpipe merchandise with things like t-shirts and hats and hoodies and mugs. So go over, check out the merch, and let the world know that you command your bagpipe. Well, thank you so much for watching, everybody. Again, I'm Matt Willis Bagpiper, and until next time, cheers.